Well, so the Nature Medicine Obesity Commission has just started today. This is the kickoff for that. So we'll wait and see what the commission is able to do. But the objective is, of course, to develop more data-driven solutions to obesity management, which in principle means stratified decision-making for populations around the world. So we have better treatment decisions, better prevention advice, and better prognosis. So traditionally, we've had a population-based strategy for prevention where you have guidelines which are somewhat modified to certain elements of the population, but are generally quite similar for the entire population. A precision approach is one that doesn't treat everyone as equal. It doesn't accept the philosophy of one size fits all, which generally public health medicine today does. And instead says, okay, so some people will do very well with standard recommendations, whereas other people won't. And for those people who won't do so well with standard recommendations, what other recommendations might work for them? And that's really the principle of a precision approach, and that does underlie the strategy that the Commission has. So I think it's fair to say that most obesity medicine and guidelines are underpinned by evidence, and those evidence come from data analyses ultimately. So it's not to say that to do a data-driven approach is entirely different from what's been done in the past, but what's important is the strategy for how those data analyses are performed. And as I mentioned just now, that really involves trying to make sure that in the tails of any distribution, there are many people who don't really fit the standard recommendations, and therefore we require a somewhat different data-driven approach for those subgroups in the population in order to make sure that they get the best recommendations or therapies. There is another obesity commission that you're aware of, I'm sure, that was published just over a year ago. Mm-hmm. That was not a data-driven commission. That was a consensus report, very high level of expertise on that commission, 52 global experts in obesity, no question about that. But it was an opinion-based commission, and that's a different approach to one that's led by data. So the Nature Medicine Commission is a data-driven commission. Well, so I think we can start with the big picture, and we can see that obesity is becoming more prevalent, and it's certainly not becoming less prevalent in most populations. So we have a problem that is growing. And if we have a problem that's growing, we can probably conclude, therefore, that our current strategies aren't working, and that should lead to some sense of urgency about innovations for new strategies, and that's the justification for the Commission, in fact. I think if I was to be more specific, then one would need to look to populations that carry the heaviest burden of obesity and its comorbidities, which are generally not people of European ancestry living in high-income countries. Yeah. Those individuals are not the ones who have most of the burden of obesity. Indeed, it's other populations, some in high-income countries, particularly people of indigenous populations in the US, for example, but also outside Europe in Southeast Asia, East Asia, Africa. We have clearly people with different genetic characteristics and social cultural characteristics, and all of those things seem to be leading to a more consequential impact of obesity on their health and well-being. So the urgency is in making a data-driven approach for obesity management more equitable across populations, across ancestral groups, across social cultural settings, both within and beyond high-income countries in the global north, right down to low middle income countries in global south.